The wedding cake was bleeding. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Not metaphorically. Actual red liquid seeping from between the pristine white fondant layers, pooling on the silver platter like a crime scene. I stood there in my Vera Wang gown, surrounded by 300 guests in the gilded ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, watching my mother-in-law Elena Whitmore's face drain of color as she stared at her masterpiece collapsing. "The raspberry filling," she whispered, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her throat. It wasn't supposed to. The structure? But I knew better. I'd watched her that morning through the partially open door of the hotel kitchen, seen her inject something into the lower tiers with a syringe. At the time, I'd assumed it was just more filling, perhaps a last-minute perfectionist touch. Elena had insisted on making the cake herself, despite my protests. Despite the fact that we'd already hired Marcel's, the most exclusive patisserie in Chicago. Now, as crimson liquid dripped onto the white tablecloth like something from a horror film, I understood. This was meant to be my humiliation. The bride whose wedding cake collapsed in front of everyone who mattered. The girl from nowhere who couldn't even get the cake right at her own reception. "Oh my God," someone whispered behind me. Is that supposed to happen?" Marcus, my husband of exactly 4 hours, appeared at my elbow. His jaw was tight, his hazel eyes flickering between his mother and the destroyed cake. "Mom, what did you—" "It's the humidity," Elena cut in smoothly, her composure returning like a mask sliding back into place. "I told the hotel the ballroom temperature needed to be regulated. This is their fault." She turned to me with practiced sympathy that didn't reach her cold blue eyes. "Darling Vivian, I'm so sorry. I worked so hard to make this perfect for you." The gasps and whispers spread through the crowd like wildfire. I could see them all watching, waiting for my reaction. The Whitmores' society friends, the partners from Marcus's law firm, the board members from Whitmore Industries, my own small collection of college friends clustered awkwardly near the back. Even my mother, who'd flown in from Sacramento and looked perpetually overwhelmed by the opulence, was staring at me with concern. This was the moment I was supposed to cry, to be gracious, to say it was fine, just a cake. These things happen. Instead, I smiled. "You know what?" I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent ballroom. "I never liked fondant anyway. Too sweet, too perfect." I picked up the cake server and cut straight through the bleeding mess, extracting a large piece onto a plate. "Let's see what it tastes like." Elena's eyes widened almost imperceptibly. "Vivian, you don't have to." "I insist." I lifted a forkful to my lips. The cake was actually delicious, whatever she'd injected into it aside. Professional level baking, which made sense because Elena Whitmore didn't do anything halfway. Not even sabotage. I swallowed and smiled wider. "Delicious. Everyone should try some, please. Don't let this go to waste." The tension broke. People laughed nervously. The catering staff began cutting and serving the damaged cake while I stood there, still smiling, watching Elena's carefully constructed moment of my humiliation dissolve into just another wedding story. But she wasn't done. Of course she wasn't. "Well," Elena announced, recovering quickly and raising her champagne flute, "at least we can still toast properly. Marcus, darling, could you have the servers bring out the special bottles? The 2008 Dom Perignon I had sent over this morning?" I'd learned 3 things about Elena Whitmore in the 8 months since Marcus proposed. 1. She never accepted defeat. 2. She always had a backup plan. 3. Everything she did had layers. The servers appeared with a trolley bearing 24 bottles of champagne in silver ice buckets. Elena personally supervised as they opened the first bottle with a theatrical pop that made everyone cheer. She poured 2 flutes herself, handling them with the reverence usually reserved for holy relics. "For the bride and groom," she announced, her voice warm and maternal as she approached us. She handed 1 flute to Marcus, who took it automatically, his corporate lawyer reflexes too ingrained to refuse. Then she turned to me, her smile never wavering. "And for my new daughter." Our eyes met. In that moment, I saw past the perfectly applied makeup, the Chanel suit, the South Sea pearls. I saw calculation, intent. The same look I'd seen that morning in the kitchen when she thought no one was watching. The champagne flute felt cool against my fingers. Condensation beaded on the crystal. The bubbles rose in perfect columns, catching the light from the chandeliers overhead. It looked exactly like every other glass of Dom Perignon I'd seen tonight, being served to guests throughout the room. But it came from Elena's hand. "Thank you," I said softly, taking the glass. "How thoughtful." Elena's smile deepened, reaching her eyes for the first time all evening. Satisfaction. She thought she'd won. Whatever was in this glass, whatever she'd planned, she believed I would drink it without question. Marcus raised his flute. "To my beautiful bride," he began, his voice carrying across the ballroom again. The crowd quieted, waiting. "To Vivian, who—" "Wait," I interrupted gently, touching his arm. "Before we toast, I want to say something." I could feel Elena tense beside me, her champagne flute suspended halfway to her lips. "I want to thank everyone for being here today," I continued, turning to address the crowd. My heart was pounding, but my voice stayed steady. Years of presenting in boardrooms had taught me that much. Especially my new family. The Whitmores have been so generous, so welcoming. Elena's smile tightened at the edges. "And Elena," I said, turning to face her directly, "you've gone to such extraordinary lengths to make this day special. The cake you made yourself, this champagne. All of it must have taken so much planning." "Anything for Marcus," she said smoothly. "And for you, of course." "Of course." I lifted my flute slightly, watching the light play through the golden liquid. "You know, I read something interesting about Dom Perignon recently, about how to tell if it's been tampered with. The bubbles behave differently when certain substances are introduced. They cluster irregularly, form patterns that aren't quite natural." The room had gone completely silent. Even the string quartet in the corner had stopped playing. "Vivian," Marcus said quietly, confusion creasing his brow. "What are you—" I held my glass up to the light, tilting it slowly. "See? Right there. The way the bubbles are forming along the left side of the glass, but not the right. Almost like something is dissolving unevenly." It was a complete lie. The champagne looked perfectly normal. But I'd learned something else about Elena in 8 months. She couldn't resist correcting people, couldn't stand letting misinformation stand even when it incriminated her. "That's absurd," Elena said sharply. "The champagne is—" She caught herself, but too late. Her hand had moved involuntarily toward my glass, as if to take it back. The gesture was small, lasted less than a second. But Marcus saw it. His face changed, the color draining away. "Mom?" His voice cracked on the word. "What did you do?" "Nothing," Elena said quickly, her composure fracturing. "She's being paranoid. The stress of the wedding has obviously—" "Then you won't mind if we test it," I said calmly. I'd been calm all day, even when I saw her in the kitchen, even when the cake collapsed, even when she handed me this glass with that satisfied gleam in her eyes, because I'd been planning too. I set my glass down on the nearest table and picked up Marcus's instead, the one Elena had poured first, the one she'd handed to her own son without hesitation. "Let's trade, Marcus. If it's all the same champagne, it shouldn't matter which glass we drink from, right? I offered him my glass. He stared at it like it was a snake. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, like this video, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Marcus, Elena said, her voice sharp now, the maternal warmth completely gone. Don't be ridiculous. This is your wedding. Vivian is trying to cause a scene. Am I? I asked, still holding both glasses. Then drink mine, Elena. Show everyone how absurd I'm being. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. 300 people held their breath. Somewhere in the back, someone's phone camera clicked, capturing the moment. Elena's face had gone rigid, her carefully constructed mask cracking to reveal something cold and desperate underneath. I won't dignify this with security, Marcus said suddenly, his voice hollow. He gestured to the two men stationed near the ballroom doors. Don't let anyone leave, especially not my mother. Marcus James Whitmore, Elena hissed, her control finally breaking completely. I am your mother. Everything I've done has been for you, to protect you from this gold digger who wormed her way into our family with her lies about. What did you put in the champagne? Marcus's voice was ice. I'd never heard him sound like that, not even in court. What did you put in my wife's champagne? Elena's mouth opened and closed. For the first time since I'd met her, she had no answer. It was supposed to make her sick, someone said from the crowd. We all turned. It was Emily Whitmore, Marcus's younger sister, her face pale but determined as she stepped forward. I heard her on the phone last week, with Dr. Brennan, asking about medications that would cause violent nausea but be untraceable after a few hours. Emily, shut up, Elena snapped. No. Emily's voice shook, but she kept talking. I thought she was just being paranoid about food safety for the wedding, but then this morning I saw her in the bathroom with a bottle from Dr. Brennan's private supply. And I saw her go into the kitchen. And I didn't say anything because she's our mother, and I thought... Her voice broke. I thought I was wrong. I wanted to be wrong. The ballroom erupted. Voices overlapping, people standing, phones appearing. Someone shouted for the police. Someone else screamed that this was a scandal. I heard my mother's voice calling my name, but it sounded distant, muffled by the roaring in my ears. I looked down at the champagne flute still in my hand, the one Elena had given me with such satisfaction. The one I'd almost drunk from, because what kind of person suspects their new mother-in-law of poisoning them at their own wedding? The kind of person who'd been paying attention for 8 months. The kind of person who'd noticed the small cruelties, the calculated undermining, the way Elena's love for her son came with conditions and control. The kind of person who'd seen the fear in the eyes of the household staff, the tension in Marcus when his mother called, the way his father Richard spent more time at their vacation home in Aspen than in the same city as his wife, the kind of person who'd installed a small camera in that kitchen this morning, just in case. I have video, I said quietly, but somehow my voice cut through the chaos. Everyone stopped, turned to stare at me. Of you in the kitchen this morning, of what you injected into the cake, of what you did to this glass. It was another lie. The camera had only caught her back. Nothing definitive. But Elena didn't know that. Her face crumbled. Not into tears or remorse, but into something rawer. Rage. Pure, undiluted fury. You don't deserve him, she spat, all pretense gone. I spent 30 years building this family's reputation, 30 years of charity boards and society events and carefully chosen connections. And then, Marcus brings home some nobody from a state school with no pedigree, no connections, no... Mom, stop. Marcus's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried. Just stop. I did this for you, Elena said, reaching for him. To save you from making the biggest mistake of your life. She's after your trust fund, Marcus. Your inheritance. I had investigators look into her background. Did you know she was engaged before? That the engagement ended right after she found out the man had no money? Did you know? Did you know? I interrupted. That I make more money than Marcus does? Elena blinked, thrown off her script. Did you know I'm a senior software architect at Meridian Tech? That I developed 3 of their flagship security protocols? That my salary is $340,000 a year, plus stock options? I smiled thinly. Did your investigators tell you that? Or did they just tell you what you wanted to hear? The lie I'd told Marcus early in our relationship had been about my past engagement. There'd never been one. But I let Elena believe there was. Let her investigators chase that false trail, while I quietly continued my actual work. The work I'd downplayed to Marcus because I'd wanted him to love me for me, not for my bank account or my patents. Apparently, we'd both been keeping secrets. That's impossible, Elena said, but her voice wavered. Call Meridian Tech, I said. Ask for Dr. Vivian Chen in Advanced Systems. See what they tell you. I'd been using my full name at work, my mother's maiden name. At home with Marcus, I'd been just Vivian Lee, the simplified American name I'd adopted in college to avoid the pronunciation issues, the microaggressions, the assumptions. But Dr. Vivian Chen had 2 MIT degrees and a patent portfolio worth millions. I don't understand, Marcus said, looking between his mother and me. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell your mother that you'd already signed a prenup protecting your trust fund? I countered. One that I suggested, by the way. One that ensures I get nothing if we divorce within 5 years. Marcus flushed. That's different. I was trying to protect yourself from a gold digger? I finished. I know. I signed it anyway. Because I'm not after your money, Marcus. I never was. The ballroom had descended into complete chaos now. Guests were filming, arguing, demanding explanations. Security was trying to maintain order. I could see Elena's friends from the country club whispering furiously, their faces alight with scandal. This would be all over society pages by morning. The Whitmore family implosion, broadcast in real time, and I'd caused it, by paying attention, by trusting my instincts. By refusing to drink from a glass I knew in my gut was poisoned. You need to leave, Marcus said to his mother, his voice dead. Now, before I have you arrested. Marcus, please. Now. Elena flinched. For just a moment, her mask slipped completely, and I saw something that looked almost like genuine pain. Then it hardened back into cold fury. You'll regret this, she said to me, ignoring her son entirely. Both of you. You think this is over? You think you've won? This family has resources you can't imagine. Connections. Power. You've just declared war on the Whitmores, little girl. And we don't lose. Neither do I said quietly. Elena turned on her heel, her Louboutins clicking sharply against the marble floor as she strode toward the exit. Emily started to follow, then stopped, looking torn. Richard Whitmore, who'd been silent throughout the entire exchange, watching from near the bar with an unreadable expression, simply nodded to me before walking after his wife. The security guards looked to Marcus for direction. Let them go, he said. But keep the champagne. All of it. We're testing it. Everything. One of the guards picked up my glass carefully, using a napkin. The Dom Perignon glittered innocently in the crystal, bubbles still rising in perfect columns. It looked harmless. Celebratory. Exactly like every other glass in the room. Except it wasn't. Marcus turned to me, his face ashen. Did you know? This whole time, did you know she would— No, I said, and it was the truth. I suspected. I paid attention. But I didn't know for certain until she handed me that glass. The cake was probably just supposed to be embarrassing. A minor humiliation, but when I didn't react the way she wanted, when I smiled and ate it anyway, I took a breath, feeling the full weight of what had almost happened settling over me. She escalated. Jesus Christ. Marcus ran his hand through his hair, disheveling the careful styling. My mother tried to poison you at our wedding. Not poison, Emily said, stepping closer now. She looked miserable, her mascara smudged from tears. I hadn't seen her cry. The medication she was asking about, it wouldn't kill you, just make you violently ill. For hours. So sick you'd have to be hospitalized. So sick that everyone would remember it. Talk about it. Poor Marcus Whitmore, whose bride got food poisoning at their reception, couldn't even make it through her own wedding. The calculated cruelty of it stole my breath. Not dangerous enough to be criminal, not permanent enough to be unforgivable, but devastating enough to mark me forever in the eyes of everyone who mattered to the Whitmores. The bride who ruined her own wedding by being weak, unprepared, unsuitable. She's done this before, I realized aloud, to other people who got too close, who threatened her control. Emily nodded miserably. Dad's second secretary, the one who quit suddenly 5 years ago? Mom put something in her coffee at a company party. Everyone thought the woman was drunk, acting erratically. She was fired, lost her reputation. I found out later that she'd been encouraging Dad to spend less time at work, more time at home. Mom saw it as a threat. Why didn't you say something? Marcus demanded. Because I was 13 and terrified and she's our mother, Emily shot back, her voice breaking. Because I convinced myself I must have been wrong. Because in this family we don't question Mom. We never question Mom. The weight of those words hung in the gilded air. 300 guests bearing witness to the Whitmore family's darkest secrets, to the cracks in their perfect facade. My phone buzzed in the hidden pocket of my gown. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Hotel security office. We have your kitchen footage. You need to see this. Now. I looked up at Marcus, at Emily, at the chaos of our destroyed reception. At the bleeding cake and the poisoned champagne and the wreckage of what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. There's more, I said. Marcus closed his eyes. Of course there is. The security office was on the second floor, accessed through a service corridor behind the kitchen. Marcus and I made our way there while Emily stayed to handle the guests, to make excuses and arrangements. I'd changed out of my heels into a pair of emergency flats I'd stashed in the bridal suite, and Marcus had shed his jacket, his bow tie hanging loose around his neck. We looked like survivors of a disaster, which, I supposed, we were. The security manager, a compact woman in her 50s named Janet Reeves, met us at the door. Her expression was grim. "Mrs. Whitmore," she said, and I had to stop myself from correcting her. It was my name now, too. "Mr. Whitmore, I need to show you something, but I'm warning you, it's bad." She led us into a room filled with monitors showing different angles of the hotel. The kitchen camera was already queued up on the main screen. "This is from 7:43 this morning," Janet said, pressing play. The footage was grainy but clear enough. There was Elena, alone in the kitchen, wearing the same Chanel suit she'd worn to the reception. She moved with purpose, pulling items from her handbag, a small bottle, a syringe, and then... "Oh God," Marcus breathed. Elena wasn't just injecting the cake, she was injecting multiple items. The cake, yes, but also bottles. Our bottles, I realized. The special champagne. She was moving methodically, efficiently, like someone following a checklist. "She marked them," I said, leaning closer to the screen. "Look." She put a tiny piece of red tape on each bottle she tampered with, so she'd know which ones to use for us specifically. The footage continued. Elena worked for nearly 20 minutes, undisturbed. The kitchen staff wouldn't arrive for another hour. She'd timed it perfectly. But then, just as she was finishing, the door opened. Richard Whitmore stepped into the frame. Marcus went rigid beside me. On the screen, Elena and Richard faced each other. There was no audio, but their body language told a story. Elena, defensive at first, then defiant. Richard, increasingly agitated, gesturing at the bottles, at the syringes. An argument, building in intensity. Then Richard reached out and grabbed Elena's wrist, hard enough that she dropped one of the bottles. It shattered on the kitchen floor, liquid spreading across the tile. Elena pulled back, shouting something we couldn't hear. Richard shouted back, his face flushed with rage. Then he did something I didn't expect. He started opening bottles, the untampered ones, pouring them down the sink one after another while Elena tried to stop him. A struggle. Champagne spraying everywhere, expensive Dom Perignon washing down the drain. He was trying to get rid of the evidence, Marcus said hoarsely. He knew what she was doing and he was trying to hide it. No, I said slowly, watching more carefully. Look, he's only pouring out the good bottles, the ones without the red tape. He's getting rid of the safe champagne. Marcus stared at the screen. Why would he? He was making it worse, Janet said quietly. Watch. Richard pulled out his phone, typed something, showed it to Elena. Her face changed, from anger to something like triumph. She nodded. They worked together then, quickly and efficiently, moving the marked bottles to the front of the trolley, hiding the unmarked ones in the back. Then they cleaned up the broken glass, composed themselves, and left the kitchen, like it had never happened. They were both in on it, I said, my voice distant even to my own ears. Elena planned it, but Richard made sure it would work. Made sure we'd drink from the poisoned bottles. That's not all, Janet said. She fast-forwarded through the footage, stopping at a timestamp from 2 hours later. This is from 9:52 a.m., your final dress fitting. The angle shifted to a different camera, showing the corridor outside the bridal suite. Elena appeared, looked around carefully to ensure she was alone, then pulled out her phone. She made a call that lasted less than 30 seconds. Janet switched to a third screen. We don't have audio for most of the hotel, but we do have it for the service corridors in case of emergencies. She was standing near a service door when she made this call. We caught it. She pressed play. Elena's voice, tinny but clear through the security system speakers. Handle the rest. Yes, I'm certain she'll drink it. The girl's too polite to refuse. No, Richard knows. He's taking care of the champagne distribution. Perfect. And you're sure the symptoms will look like food poisoning? Excellent. By midnight, everyone will know she's unsuitable. Marcus will see she can't handle this family. What? Yes, the cake too. Multiple humiliations, multiple witnesses. By the time the night is over, that nobody will wish she'd never heard the name Whitmore. The recording ended. Marcus had gone completely white. My father, he said. My father actually helped her try to... There's more, Janet interrupted. From this afternoon, 2:17 p.m., while you were both at the ceremony. She pulled up another file. This time the camera showed the ballroom being set up for the reception. Richard Whitmore appeared, along with Dr. Brennan. I recognized him from the photos in Marcus's apartment, the Whitmore family physician for over 20 years. They approached the champagne trolley. Dr. Brennan examined the bottles, nodded, then actually switched several of them around, reorganizing the marked ones to ensure they'd be at the very front. He's a doctor, Marcus said, his voice breaking. He took an oath. He's supposed to... There's one last thing, Janet said. Her expression had shifted from grim to something like sympathy. This is from 45 minutes ago, during the cake cutting. The timestamp showed 6:15 p.m., the ballroom again, but from an angle showing the guest tables. There, at a table near the back, sat my mother. And approaching her with 2 champagne flutes was Richard Whitmore. My blood turned to ice. "No," I whispered. "No, he wouldn't." But on the screen, Richard was smiling, gesturing to one of the flutes, offering it to my mother with grandfatherly charm. She was smiling back, clearly flattered by the attention from this distinguished gentleman. She reached for the glass. And then Emily appeared, intercepting Richard with the kind of graceful collision that could only be deliberate. The champagne spilled across Richard's shirt. My mother stood up to help, concerned. In the commotion, Emily grabbed both flutes and handed them to a passing waiter, mouthing something about getting fresh ones. Richard's face, for just a moment, showed pure fury. Then the mask slammed back into place, and he was apologizing profusely to Emily for being so clumsy. "Your sister-in-law," Janet said, "has been following her father around all evening. Every time he approached someone from the bride's family with a drink," she found a way to interrupt. "I think she's been trying to protect people without knowing how to stop her parents directly." I thought of Emily's earlier confession, her tears, the weight of family loyalty crushing her into silence even as she tried to help in small, desperate ways. "We need to call the police," Marcus said, "right now, before they leave the hotel." "They already have," Janet said quietly. "Your mother left immediately after the confrontation. Your father followed 10 minutes later, and Dr. Brennan left during the chaos, while everyone was distracted." "Then we get them arrested," Marcus insisted. "This is attempted poisoning, conspiracy. We have evidence." "Do we?" I asked softly. Everyone turned to look at me. "Think about it," I continued. "What do we actually have? Video of Elena injecting food? Yes. But we don't know what was in those syringes. Could have been extra filling. Could have been food coloring. Could have been anything." "The champagne," Marcus started. "We have the glasses from the trolley, the ones that were served to guests. But the bottle Elena used to pour ours? She took that with her. And even if we test the other bottles and find something, her lawyers will argue contamination, tampering. Dozens of people had access to that trolley during setup." "The audio recording? Mentions making me sick, but doesn't specify how or with what. Could claim it was just trash talk, hyperbole. Mother-in-law drama." Marcus stared at me. "You're not seriously suggesting we let them get away with this?" "I'm suggesting that taking this to court right now with what we have will turn into a he-said-she-said nightmare. The Whitmore family lawyers against the word of the new bride, everyone will paint as paranoid or attention-seeking." I met his eyes. "Your family has resources, Marcus. Connections. Your mother said it herself, they don't lose." "So what? We gather more evidence," I said. "Real evidence. Unassailable evidence. We document everything, build an airtight case, and then we don't just go to the police. We go to the media. We go to the board of Whitmore Industries. We burn down everything they've built with their corruption and cruelty. And we make sure they can never hurt anyone again." Janet was watching me with something like respect. "You've thought about this." "I've been thinking about it since this morning," I admitted. "When I saw Elena in the kitchen, I knew then that something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong. But I knew that whatever she was planning, I couldn't just react to it. I had to be smarter." "Which is why you set up the confrontation," Marcus said slowly. "With the champagne glasses. You weren't trying to prove she'd poisoned you. You were trying to make her reveal herself in front of witnesses." 300 witnesses with camera phones," I confirmed. "I needed her to break, to lose control. Because controlled, Elena Whitmore is untouchable. But uncontrolled, unhinged, making threats in front of society's elite? That's different." "You recorded the whole thing," Janet said. It wasn't a question. I pulled out my phone, opened the voice recording app. The entire confrontation was there, time-stamped and backed up to 3 different cloud services. Every word, including her admission that she's done this before, including her threat at the end. Jesus, Marcus breathed. You've been planning this all day. Not planning, I corrected. Preparing. There's a difference. I didn't know what Elena would do, but I knew she would do something, and I knew I needed to be ready to document it when she did. Marcus sank into one of the office chairs, his face in his hands. This is insane. My mother tried to poison you. My father helped. Our family doctor was involved. And now you're telling me we can't even go to the police because they'll use their money and connections to make the whole thing disappear. Not disappear, I said. Twist. They'll twist it into something else. A misunderstanding, wedding drama, a bride having a breakdown from stress. They'll make me the villain, Marcus. They're already good at it. He looked up at me, his eyes red-rimmed. What do we do? I thought about Elena's words. This family has resources you can't imagine, connections, power. You've just declared war on the Whitmores, little girl. She was right. This was war. But she'd underestimated me. They all had. We fight smart, I said. We use their own tactics against them. We play the long game. How? I looked at Janet. I need copies of all that security footage, time-stamped, authenticated, stored on encrypted drives that can be verified as untampered. Janet nodded. I'll handle it personally. I also need names of everyone who worked the reception setup, particularly anyone who might have seen Elena, Richard, or Dr. Brennan doing anything unusual with the food or drinks. I can get you a list by tomorrow. And I need to know what happened to the champagne bottle Elena used to pour our glasses. Did she take it with her? Janet pulled up the footage again, fast-forwarding through the chaos after the confrontation. There, Elena near the champagne trolley, her back to the crowd, slipping a bottle into her large designer handbag. She took it, Janet confirmed. Then we track her purchases, I said. Credit card records? We find out when she bought that particular champagne. Where? Who sold it to her? We establish that she specifically procured those bottles separate from the ones the hotel provided. Marcus was staring at me with a mix of awe and something that might have been fear. You sound like a prosecutor. I sound like someone who's been underestimated her whole life, I corrected. By people who think intelligence and preparedness are the same as paranoia, who think being careful means being weak. You're not weak, Emily's voice came from the doorway. We all turned. She stood there, still in her bridesmaid dress, her face drawn. I should have been more like you. Should have said something years ago, instead of just trying to run interference. You saved my mother tonight, I told her. That's not nothing. It's not enough. Emily stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. I want to help. For real. I can get into Mom's home office, her computer. I know where she keeps her personal files. Emily, that's... Marcus started. What she did to you was evil, Emily interrupted, looking at me. What she's done to so many people over the years is evil, and I'm done being complicit just because she's my mother. I'm done watching her hurt people and convincing myself it's not my business. She squared her shoulders. So tell me what you need, and I'll get it. I studied her. This girl, no, young woman, who'd spent the evening secretly protecting guests from her own parents, who'd finally found the courage to speak up, despite the cost. How good are you with technology? I asked. MIT, computer science, graduated last year, Emily said. Currently working at Whitmore Industries in their IT security division. Which means I have access to basically everything in the company systems. The pieces clicked together in my mind. Your mother doesn't know what you're capable of, does she? She probably thinks you're just doing basic tech support. She thinks I'm wasting my degree by not going to law school like Marcus did. Emily said with a bitter smile. She barely pays attention to what I actually do at the company. As far as she's concerned, I'm just the unmarried daughter who's failed to snag an appropriate husband. Perfect, I said. Then here's what we're going to do. I laid it out for them. The plan that had been forming in my head since the moment Elena's mask had cracked, since I'd understood the full scope of what I was dealing with. It was risky. It was complicated. It required perfect timing and coordination. It required trust. I looked at Marcus, who'd spent our entire relationship keeping secrets from me, just as I'd kept secrets from him. At Emily, who'd been trapped between loyalty and conscience for years. At Janet, who was risking her job by helping us at all. This could blow up in our faces, I said. They could destroy us. Destroy me, specifically. If we do this, Elena was right. We're declaring war on one of Chicago's most powerful families. Good, Marcus said quietly. His jaw was set, his eyes hard in a way I'd never seen before. Because I'm done letting my mother get away with being a monster just because she writes big charity checks and hosts elegant parties. I'm done pretending this family isn't rotten at its core. Dad will fight us too, Emily warned. He won't let Mom go down alone. He'll use everything. His business connections, his political favors, everything. Let him, I said. By the time we're done, he won't have any favors left to call in. Janet stood up, pulling out a USB drive from her desk drawer. The security footage, encrypted and authenticated. Everything from this morning through tonight. I've already sent copies to my personal backup and to our security company's secure server. If anyone tries to delete or alter the hotel's files, we'll know. Won't you get fired for this? Marcus asked. Probably, Janet said with a shrug. But I've been in hotel security for 30 years. I've seen a lot of bad behavior from wealthy guests. But this? She shook her head. This was attempted poisoning at a wedding. I have a daughter your age, Mrs. Whitmore. If someone did this to her, I'd want someone to help her fight back. Mrs. Whitmore. The name felt strange, heavy, like putting on armor that didn't quite fit yet. But I'd grow into it. I'd wear it like a weapon. Thank you, I said, taking the USB drive. For everything. Janet nodded. There's one more thing you should know. About Richard Whitmore. She pulled up a file on her computer. Older footage. 3 years ago, we had another wedding here. The Pemberton Clark wedding. Very similar setup. Society family. Big reception. The works. She played the footage. A ballroom much like ours. A bride in white. Guests mingling. And there, in the corner, was Richard Whitmore talking to someone I didn't recognize. That's Elizabeth Pemberton, the bride, Janet explained. Her family was in direct competition with Whitmore Industries for a major contract at the time. The wedding was here because Elizabeth's father was personal friends with our former hotel manager. On screen, Richard handed Elizabeth a champagne flute. She drank from it, laughing at something he'd said. 20 minutes later, according to the timestamp, Elizabeth was being carried out of the ballroom by paramedics, violently ill. Food poisoning, Janet said. That was the official diagnosis, but I always wondered. Richard Whitmore had no reason to be at that wedding. The families weren't close. He just showed up as a +1 to some distant cousin. And then the bride ended up hospitalized for 2 days, missed her honeymoon, and the whole event turned into a scandal. What happened with the contract? I asked, though I already knew. Whitmore Industries won it, Janet confirmed. Elizabeth's father was so distracted by the wedding disaster that he missed some critical deadlines. Pemberton Corp never really recovered. They went bankrupt 18 months later. The room was silent except for the hum of the security monitors. He's done this before, Marcus said numbly. More than once. It's their pattern, their weapon. Make someone sick at a public event, destroy their reputation, and profit from the chaos. We need to find the other victims, I said. Document every time Elena or Richard has done this. Build a pattern of behavior that can't be dismissed as coincidence. That could take months, Emily said. Good thing I'm patient, I replied. Marcus stood up, took my hand. His palm was clammy, his fingers trembling slightly. Vivian, I'm sorry. For not seeing what my family was, for putting you in danger. For keeping secrets about the prenup? I interrupted gently. He flushed. That too. We both kept secrets, Marcus. You were protecting yourself from gold diggers. I was protecting myself from people who'd treat me differently if they knew about my work. We both had reasons. I squeezed his hand. The difference is, our secrets never hurt anyone. Your parents' secrets? They've been destroying lives for years. What do we do now? He asked. Tonight, I mean. We can't go back to the reception. No, I agreed. But we can't hide either. That's what they'd expect. That's what they'd want. Us cowering, overwhelmed, giving up. So what do we do? I smiled, feeling something hard and determined settling into place in my chest. Something that had been building since the moment I'd seen that bleeding cake. Since I'd met Elena's satisfied eyes as she handed me poison in a crystal glass. We go back to the reception, I said. We thank our guests for coming. We apologize for the disruption. We smile and dance and cut our wedding cake, the real one, from Marcel's, that just arrived. And we show everyone that we're not broken. We're not defeated. And then? Emily asked. And then we go on our honeymoon to Bali as planned, I continued. We post beautiful photos. We look happy and in love and completely untouched by Elena's schemes. We make her think she failed to hurt us. But, Marcus prompted, but while we're gone, we're actually working, researching, building our case, finding every victim, every piece of evidence, every connection. And when we come back? I looked at each of them in turn. When we come back, we don't just expose them. We dismantle them, methodically, completely, until there's nothing left of the Whitmore reputation but ashes. Janet was nodding slowly. The long game. The only game that matters, I confirmed. We left the security office 20 minutes later, armed with encrypted files and burning with purpose. The ballroom was quieter when we returned, many guests having already left in the wake of the drama. But there were still enough people there, the ones who'd stayed out of loyalty or curiosity or sheer determination to see how this night ended. My mother found me first, pulling me into a fierce hug. Are you all right? That woman, what she tried to do. I know, Mom, I'm fine. We're handling it. We should call the police. We will, I promised. But first we need to finish our wedding. She pulled back, studying my face. You're planning something. I'm planning justice, I said. But it's going to take time. My mother, who'd raised me alone after my father died, who'd worked 3 jobs to pay for my education, who'd taught me that survival meant being smarter than the people trying to keep you down, nodded once. Then take your time. Do it right. The band started playing again at Marcus's signal. We danced, we smiled, we pretended. And while we pretended, I felt the USB drive in my hidden pocket, a hard reminder of the evidence we'd gathered. The first pieces of the case we were building. Elena Whitmore had declared war. But she'd made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated what I was willing to do to win it. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room at the FBI's Chicago field office, watching Elena Whitmore's face drain of color as Special Agent Rebecca Martinez laid out photographs across the table. Mrs. Whitmore, do you recognize any of these people? Bali had been a working honeymoon. While Marcus and I posed for Instagram photos on pristine beaches, Emily had been in Chicago, methodically accessing her mother's digital files. What she found was worse than we'd imagined. Elena kept records, detailed, meticulous records, names, dates, methods, 12 years of calculated attacks, all documented in encrypted files she'd stored on a private server, accessible only through her home computer. She'd kept them like trophies, like proof of her own cleverness. Emily had copied everything. "I don't know what this is about," Elena said, but her voice wavered. Her lawyer, a sharp-faced man named Thornton, put a hand on her arm. "My client doesn't have to answer." Elizabeth Pemberton Clark, Agent Martinez continued, tapping one photo. "Hospitalized during her wedding reception in 2022. Sarah Chen, your husband's former secretary, dismissed after becoming violently ill at a company party in 2020. Thomas Waverly, a board member who opposed your husband's acquisition strategy, collapsed during a charity gala in 2019. She kept laying out photos, more names, more victims, a pattern spanning over a decade. "Dr. Brennan has already given us a statement," Martinez said. "In exchange for immunity, he's provided detailed accounts of every prescription he falsified for you, every medication he supplied, every time he helped you calculate dosages that would cause severe illness but leave no lasting trace." Elena's mask was cracking. "That man is a liar. He's trying to save himself by—" "We also have your files, Mrs. Whitmore." Martinez placed a tablet on the table showing screenshots of Elena's own records, dates, names, methods, all in her own words, backed up with scanned receipts for medications purchased under false names, correspondence with Dr. Brennan, even photographs she'd taken of some of her victims during their illness. "My daughter betrayed me," Elena whispered, staring at the screen. Then louder, with venom. "My own daughter broke into my home, stole my private files." "Your daughter reported a pattern of criminal activity to the authorities," Martinez corrected, "which is her legal obligation. The search warrant for your home and computers was issued based on her testimony and the security footage from the Meridian Hotel." I watched from behind the one-way glass, Marcus beside me, Emily on his other side. We'd been watching for 2 hours as the case we'd built was laid out piece by piece. The FBI had taken over after we'd brought them our evidence, after they'd verified the hotel footage and interviewed Janet Reeves, and tracked down Richard Whitmore's financial records. Richard was in the next room over, his own interrogation underway. According to Agent Martinez, he'd tried to run when the FBI showed up at their estate. Made it as far as the private airfield before they caught him attempting to board a plane to the Cayman Islands. "Your husband has already implicated you in 18 separate incidents," Martinez continued. "He claims you were the mastermind, that he only helped because you threatened to divorce him and take half his assets." "That bastard," Elena hissed. "I built his empire. I made him respectable. Before me, he was just another mediocre businessman. I taught him how to eliminate competition, how to leverage people's weaknesses." "Elena, stop talking," Thornton said sharply. But she couldn't. The mask was fully off now, the careful society matriarch replaced by something raw and furious. "You want to know why I did it?" Elena stood up, her chair scraping loudly. "Because people like her—" She pointed toward the glass, as if she could see me watching. "People who don't belong, who haven't earned their place. They think they can just waltz into families like ours and take what we've built. They think education and work ethic matter more than breeding and connections. They're parasites." "Mrs. Whitmore," Martinez began, "that wedding was supposed to expose her for what she is. Weak, common, unable to handle the pressure of being a Whitmore. And it would have worked if Marcus hadn't been so—" She stopped, her face contorting. "He chose her over me, his own mother." The silence in the interrogation room was profound. "Are you confessing to attempted poisoning?" Martinez asked quietly. Thornton stood up. "This interview is over. My client will not be making any further statements." But Elena wasn't done. I did what I had to do to protect my family. Everything I did was for my family, and I'd do it again. Martinez nodded to the agent by the door. Elena Whitmore, you're under arrest for attempted poisoning, conspiracy to commit assault, and multiple counts of assault with a chemical substance. You have the right to remain silent. The rest of the Miranda rights faded into background noise as Elena was handcuffed. She didn't resist, but her eyes found the one-way glass again, burning with hatred. She knows we're watching, Emily said softly. Let her look, Marcus replied. His jaw was tight, his eyes dry. He'd cried the night the FBI first interviewed us, cried for the parents he'd thought he had, for the family that had never really existed. Now, he was just tired. Let her see that we're still here, still standing. In the observation room, Agent Martinez joined us. Richard's confessing to everything. He's trying to paint himself as the victim, manipulated by his wife. It won't work. The evidence shows he was an active participant, but he's giving us names of other people who knew. Politicians they bribed, judges they influenced. It's going to get bigger before it's done. Whitmore Industries? I asked. The board has already called an emergency meeting. With both Richard and Elena facing criminal charges, they're looking at a massive restructuring. Your husband is being asked to step up as interim CEO, with Emily as Chief Technology Officer. Marcus and Emily looked at each other. This was the part we hadn't planned for, the unexpected consequence of bringing down their parents. I don't want it, Marcus said finally. The company is tainted. Everything they built was built on hurting people. Then change it, I said. Don't let their victims see the company disappear and think they've won from beyond prison. Take it over. Make it something clean. Something that actually helps people instead of destroying them. That's easy for you to say, Marcus countered. You don't have to. I'll help you, I interrupted. I have 3 months of vacation time saved up at Meridian Tech. I'll take a leave of absence. We'll rebuild Whitmore Industries together, from the ground up. Emily can handle the technology infrastructure. I can overhaul the security protocols and corporate governance, and you can handle the legal compliance and ethical oversight. Why would you do that? Emily asked. After everything our family did to you? Because your family isn't just your parents, I said. Your family too. And you chose to do the right thing. Even when it cost you everything. That matters. Emily's eyes filled with tears. They're going to prison, aren't they? For years. Martinez nodded. With the number of victims coming forward, the documented pattern of behavior and their own confessions, yes, we're looking at multiple felony charges, 20 years minimum, possibly more. Good, Marcus said harshly, then softer. Is that terrible? That I'm glad my own parents are going to prison? It means you have a conscience, Martinez said, which is more than they have. The trial took 6 months. Elena pleaded not guilty despite the evidence, convinced until the end that her connections would save her. They didn't. One by one, the people she'd thought were allies distanced themselves. The charity boards quietly removed her name. The society pages that had once celebrated her now detailed her downfall with savage glee. Richard accepted a plea deal, 25 years in exchange for testimony against Elena and Dr. Brennan. Elena received 35 years. Dr. Brennan, who'd provided evidence and testified for the prosecution, got 15 with possibility of parole in 7. I attended every day of the trial, sitting in the front row where Elena could see me. Marcus wanted me to stay away, worried about the stress. But I needed to be there, needed to watch justice happen, needed the closure. On the last day, after the verdict was read, Elena's eyes found mine across the courtroom. For just a moment, the hatred flickered into something that might have been recognition, an acknowledgement that I'd beaten her at her own game, that I'd been smarter and more patient and more ruthless than she'd ever anticipated. Then the bailiffs led her away, and I never saw her again. Whitmore Industries was restructured under Marcus's leadership. He brought in an independent ethics board, implemented transparent financial reporting, and reached out to every person his parents had harmed, offering restitution and formal apologies. Some accepted, some didn't. But he tried. Emily transformed the company's technology infrastructure, implementing security protocols I'd designed that made corporate espionage and the kind of manipulation their parents had practiced nearly impossible. She also started a foundation for victims of workplace poisoning and corporate retaliation, funded entirely by the assets seized from Richard and Elena. As for me, I returned to Meridian Tech after my leave of absence, but with a new focus. I developed a security system specifically designed to detect food and drink tampering at events, microscopic sensors that could identify foreign substances in real time. 3 hotels have already installed it. 20 more are in talks. The system is called the Vivian Protocol. 1 year after the wedding, Marcus and I had a small ceremony to renew our vows. Just family and close friends, in my mother's backyard in Sacramento. No elaborate reception, no society guests, no champagne towers. Just love and laughter and the people who'd stood by us through the worst of it. Emily was my maid of honor. She'd cut her hair short and dyed it purple, a visible rebellion against everything Elena had demanded she be. She was also dating a software developer she'd met at a tech conference, a wonderful woman named Priya, who made her laugh in ways I'd never heard before. To second chances, Emily toasted, raising her glass of sparkling cider. And to the bravest person I know, Vivian, who looked at a poisoned glass and decided to fight back instead of becoming a victim. To Vivian, everyone echoed. Marcus squeezed my hand. I'm sorry it took almost losing you for me to see what my family really was. I'm sorry I didn't trust you enough to tell you the truth about my career from the start, I replied. We're even then. Are we, though? I smiled. Because I'm pretty sure I'm still the one who prevented a poisoning, exposed a criminal conspiracy, and saved your family's company from complete destruction. True, Marcus agreed. I'll be making it up to you for the rest of our lives. I'm counting on it. My mother approached with a plate of her homemade dumplings, the ones I'd grown up eating, the ones that tasted like home and safety and unconditional love. Eat, she commanded. You're too thin. All this stress. I'm fine, Mom. You're always fine, she said, but her eyes were soft. Even when you shouldn't be. Even when you should ask for help. I had help, I said, looking around at the small gathering. I had all of you. Later, as the sun set and fairy lights twinkled in the trees, I stood with Marcus on the back porch. In the distance, I could hear Emily laughing, my mother telling stories, friends sharing memories of the past year's chaos and triumph. Do you regret it? Marcus asked quietly. Marrying into my family? Everything that happened? I thought about the bleeding cake, the poisoned champagne, the moment Elena's mask had cracked to reveal the monster underneath. I thought about the fear, the anger, the months of investigation and testimony, and watching a family destroy itself. But I also thought about Emily's courage, Marcus's determination to be better than his parents, the victims who'd finally gotten justice after years of suffering in silence. I thought about the changes we'd made, the systems we'd built, the foundation we'd created to help others. No, I said finally. I don't regret it. Because I won. We won, Marcus corrected. No, I repeated, smiling. I won. You just helped. He laughed, pulling me close. There's the confidence that terrified my mother from day one. She should have been terrified, I said. She went to war with the wrong woman. That she did. The champagne flute at our original reception had been meant to break me, to mark me as unsuitable, to drive me out of a family that never wanted me in the first place. Instead, it had revealed the rot at the core of that family and given me the opportunity to cut it out entirely. Elena Whitmore had handed me poison and expected me to drink it. I'd handed her justice instead. And in the end, that was the sweetest revenge of all. 6 months later, I received a letter from the prison where Elena was serving her sentence. It was brief, written in her still immaculate handwriting. You think you've won. You think you've destroyed me. But you're wrong. You didn't beat me through superiority or strength. You beat me through luck and my own son's betrayal. Without Marcus and Emily turning against me, you would have been nothing. Remember that when you're playing at being a Whitmore, you're still the nobody who got lucky. I read it once, then fed it through the shredder in my home office. She was right about one thing. I had gotten lucky. Lucky that Marcus chose love over loyalty to a monster. Lucky that Emily found her courage. Lucky that Janet Reeves cared enough to save the security footage. But luck is what you make of it. Elena had gotten lucky too. Lucky in her wealth, her connections, her husband's complicity. She'd just been arrogant enough to believe luck was the same as invincibility. I framed the original security footage from the kitchen that morning, the image of Elena with her syringes and her careful planning. It hangs in my office now, a reminder that preparation and attention to detail matter, that watching, waiting, and documenting are sometimes more powerful than any immediate reaction. The champagne flute from that night sits on my desk too, sealed in a clear case with a placard that reads, "Trust your instincts. Question everything. Never drink from a glass you didn't pour yourself." It's become something of a legend at Meridian Tech, that glass. Interns ask about it. Colleagues reference it in security training. It's a symbol of vigilance, of the importance of paying attention to details others miss. But to me, it's simpler than that. It's proof that I survived, that I fought back, that when someone tried to poison me at my own wedding, I didn't just escape. I dismantled their entire world. Elena Whitmore wanted to teach me a lesson about knowing my place. Instead, I taught her one about underestimating people who have everything to lose and nothing left to fear. And that's a lesson she'll have 35 years to remember. The end. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.